Welcome back and Happy New Year. Today we're going to make the perfect beginner's project, a scrunchie. If you're starting a small business, they're a good source of income, but also a great small gift for someone. I really enjoy making these really soft velvet scrunchies, but today we'll use crushed velvet. So you'll need your fabric of choice, some of the same coloured thread and a piece of elastic. Mine measures 25 centimetres by 0.7 centimetres. Your fabric will measure 75 centimetres by 13.5 centimetres, and once you've cut it, you can fold it in half with the wrong sides facing out, like this. At the open edge, we're going to sew around a 1 centimetre seam allowance. It's a good idea to backstitch at the beginning and at the end of this seam. Once you've sewn, your project will look like this, and you're now going to work the loop around your hands so that the seam is sitting on the top of the fabric in the middle. You can now finger press your seam and turn the project over. You're now going to roll the bottom and the top edges of the fabric into the middle, as I'm showing you here. Your project will now look like this with a roll in the centre. Now you can bring up the bottom edge to sit aligned with the top edge, so that the two open seams meet. They should be on top of each other. Your roll will now be in the centre, and if you just clip the open seams, this makes it easier to sew. I would also clip either side of that central clip around 10 centimetres, just making sure the edges are straight. So your project will now look like this, with the raw edges sitting on top of each other neatly. So now we're going to sew the clipped edges together from the top clip to the bottom clip, and I would suggest leaving a seam allowance of 1 centimetre, backstitching at the beginning. When you get to the second clip, make sure that your needle is within the fabric, and opening the bottom of the tube that you've created, you're now going to pull the roll through the bottom, and maybe using the top of the fabric or the outside of the fabric just to help you do that. Once you get the movement, you'll start to feel that it's quite easy. You're just pulling the tube back on itself. When you line your fabric up again, making sure that the roll is still within the middle of the tube, you can then continue to sew the seam down the side as I'm showing you here. Just make sure that your edges are all lined up and neat. And again, sew to as far down as you can without closing the tube. Remember to leave your needle inside the fabric, and again pull the tube, or the roll should I say, through the tube and give yourself a little bit more seam to sew. We're going to repeat exactly what we did before. Repeat the process as many times as you need to, and eventually the start of the seam will become visible, like here. You can continue sewing down until you leave a 3 or 4 centimetre gap, and just remember to backstitch at the end. Your project will now look like this. Through the gap, you can now turn the project right sides out, so gently just pulling the fabric through, and when you get hold of the roll, you'll be able to just pull it in one continuous movement like this. Now we're going to thread the elastic through the gap that you've left. So with a safety pin, attach it to the end of the elastic I usually fold the end of the elastic over just so it's a little bit stronger. Pop the safety pin through, and now we're going to feed it through the tube of fabric that you've made. Remember to keep hold of the other end of the elastic while you're doing this, just to save it getting lost inside the tube. So once you've done that and the pinned end of the elastic comes out, remove the pin, and we're going to make a simple knot in the two ends of the elastic, pushing the knot towards the ends if you can, and then snip off any excess elastic as I'm showing you here. You can decide how you close the opening in the scrunchie. You can either sew with a machine along the gap that you've left, or you can hand stitch. I prefer to hand stitch just because it doesn't then leave a flattened seam. It looks a little bit neater at the end. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use an invisible stitch or a ladder stitch, and you can just watch how I do that now. If you want to see a video of exactly how to do a ladder stitch by hand, then please leave a comment below and I can certainly do that for you. For all of the beginner sewers, I do hope this video has been helpful. Scrunchies are a really good way to start sewing and to gain a little bit of confidence in terms of seam allowances, hand stitching if you choose, and also just measuring fabric and cutting. If you have any more requests for a video, please don't forget to leave a comment below and like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.